The topic for this video is tax planning. We're looking at financial planning frameworks and processes that get integrated when we develop an effective financial plan. So again, always just starting with a quick review of the 6 financial planning components. Previously, we've seen a video for financial management, investment planning, insurance and risk management, and now we're moving on to tax planning. Again, for each of the, that's the framework, and in terms of the process, we collect information, we analyze it, and then we make recommendations, okay? Again, in these videos, we're reviewing the FP Canada Competency Profile. So here we are on the main page. We scroll down, and by now you've seen this before if you've watched the previous videos. It's on the bottom left-hand side, the Competency Profile, and we're working off the FP Canada Standards Council Competency Profile. We're using the one that's effective for January 1st, 2020. So now we're on the second page of that competency profile. We're going to look at the tax planning in this video. And then, of course, it'll be followed by retirement planning and then estate planning and legal aspects. So recall, we've already looked at financial management, investment planning, insurance and risk management, and now we're getting into the tax planning. Okay, the topic for this video is tax management. And indeed, that might be another area where a financial planner really specializes and becomes an expert in tax. And indeed, it is not uncommon in Canada and other jurisdictions where a financial planner will be dual certified, meaning not only CFP, but also perhaps some sort of accounting designation like CPA, okay? And the financial planner has indeed the tax expertise. If not, then this is an example perhaps where the financial planner needs the teamwork and collaboration skills to be able to work with other professionals, that tax accountant as appropriate, to help implement the financial plan and to coordinate a tax accountant and manage the client interactions with other qualified professionals as needed. So in summary, the financial planner is either a perhaps dual certified or at the best case scenario, or still very qualified as in terms of tax as just a basic necessity to be CFP certified. And if not, if the level that the client needs with regards to the tax advice is above and beyond the expertise of the financial planner, then you need to work with other professionals. So let's look at the elements that a certified financial planner is responsible for in terms of the tax planning area. So in terms of collecting quantitative information, number 1, collects information to establish clients' current and projected tax position, identify tax implications of assets and liabilities, and identifies parties relevant to the client's tax situation. In terms of the qualitative information, determines the client's taxation experience, attitudes, biases, and objectives, and determines the client's tax knowledge, okay? Moving on to the analysis, in terms of assessing the client's situation, certified financial planner needs to determine the tax impact of relevant transactions and events. So you can see just at the minimum required level to be CFP certified, you do have to have some tax expertise. What I'm pointing out in the previous slide is that some tax can be a very, very extremely complicated area, and sometimes you need to call in the specialist. Okay, but you can see here, certified financial planner is responsible for calculating the current and projected tax liabilities. And also in terms of assessing the client situation, you need to assess existing tax strategies. Moving on to identifying and evaluating strategies. Number 1, considers potential tax planning strategies. Number 2, assesses impact of tax planning alternatives. Number 3, evaluates advantages and disadvantages of each tax planning strategy. And then finally, prioritizes the client's tax planning objective and needs, the collection and analysis feeding into the recommendation for tax planning, which is ultimately ending up in the integrated financial plan. In terms of the recommendation, you're going to formulate tax planning strategies, recommend the optimal tax planning strategies, and prioritize the steps to assist the client in implementing tax planning recommendation. An example of that might be selling some shares to realize a capital gain, or selling some other shares to realize a capital loss to offset a capital gain from perhaps selling other shares. So that would be an example of prioritizing some steps to assist the client in implementing the tax planning recommendations. Is that we're getting close to the end of the year, perhaps you should sell some shares for a loss to offset some of the capital gains that you took previously in the year. So again, this is just an introduction to the framework and the process, and you can see in terms of the tax planning there's really 15 elements as we go through the collection, analysis, and recommendation the process. What I want to do next in this video with regards to tax planning is take a little bit more time to look at the difference in the knowledge required for the FPSC Level 1 certificate, which indeed in January 1st, 2020, they're going to call the QFP certification, and the level of tax knowledge required when you move up to the CFP. So how do we do that? I'm at the website here for FP Canada, www.fpcanada.ca. I'm going to scroll down on the home page, and we get to this section right here, which is the featured resource, the financial planning body of knowledge. And you can see that the financial planning body of knowledge clearly distinguishes the knowledge expected of FP Canada certificates and comprises 12 topics: financial planning profession and financial services industry regulation, financial analysis, credit and debt, registered retirement plans, government benefit plans, registered education and disability plans, economics, investments, taxation, which is the subject for this video today, which is why I want to look in this area, law, insurance, and human behavior. So recall there's 6 financial planning areas, but there's 12 topics here, okay? So if I click on there, explore the body of knowledge, again, I'm going to scroll down to the section here on taxation. I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to read the first paragraph because it's quite insightful. Taxation. Both CFP professionals and FPSC Level 1 certificates are expected to possess knowledge to allow them to complete and interpret an individual's basic personal tax return, including identifying and explaining the income tax assessment rules for individuals, explaining the tax implications of how different types of income received by individuals may be taxed, and identifying the tax deductions and credits for which an individual may be eligible. They should further be able to identify and estimate the benefit of engaging in foundational income splitting and strategies. So that's the both CFP professionals and Level 1 certificates. That's the minimum knowledge required. And then the second paragraph is talking about CFP professionals are also expected to have knowledge, allow them to identify income tax assessment rules for corporations and trusts, etc. I won't read the whole paragraph, but if we scroll down, you can see that there's 2 columns here, both FPSC Level 1 certificates and CFP professionals, and here there's CFP professionals only. And you can see the reason why I'm taking time to look at that is that when we come to the area of tax, you can see that there's quite a few topics here that are relevant to CFP professionals only. So my students, for example, at the college, George Brown College, are taking 2 3-year diplomas. That is getting them ready to write that first Level 1 certificate exam, or indeed it's going to be called QFP in January 1st, 2020. These topics here: income splitting for investors, income splitting for self-employed business, tax shelters, U.S. tax consequences at death, trusts, estate freezes, and taxation of business ownership, for example, plus these other topics here. That's only for CFP professionals only. So if you're just starting your CFP journey and you're going to start by writing the Level 1 certificate, or indeed after January 1st, 2020, the QAFP, you have to realize that this column is the area that you're responsible for. So if I click on relationships under income tax, for example, you can read more. And again, we're going to scroll down, and it tells you what is expected of you as a Level 1 certificate. And so you have to define taxpayers associated with income tax, such as individual taxpayers, corporate taxpayers, trusts, define individual taxpayers, and define relationships for income tax purposes, such as spouse, common law partner, etc. And so you can see here, define, these are all learning outcome statements, and this is the glossary of the verbs for the learning outcome statements. And again, so you can see in terms of define, it's to state exactly the meaning of, okay? So in this, with regards to relationships, there's no calculations. We don't converting or evaluating. We're just making some definitions, okay? So that's fairly important to understand when we get into the tax, what level you're required to understand for the level 1, and what you need to know for the CFP. Okay, we're just going to finish this video by highlighting a resource that's available if you want to learn more about tax. Of course, any content, curriculum, textbooks that are getting you ready to study for the CFP exams, they're going to have a section on tax. But in fact, if you go to the Canada Revenue Agency, www.canada.ca, just to the CRA website actually, and you scroll down, you get here to the section on income tax. You're going to click on that. Personal income tax, trust income tax, corporation income tax. There's a lot of information here that all the forms, all the related forms, it's a little bit overwhelming at first, but in fact, I have found that if you work your way through this here, this page sets out everything you need to do your taxes, your tax obligations, your slips, personal income, deductions, credits, tax refunds. Actually, everything that you need to learn for the QAFP exam and the CFP exam, the content can be found here at the Government of Canada website. And that's why I was saying that it's quite important to be back on this other page for FP Canada and really understanding what you need to know for the level 1 exam versus what you need to know as a CFP professional, so that when you go over to the CRA website, for example, you can filter through and really understand what you need to know for the level that you're at, because there's a lot that tax is a huge area. To become a tax specialist is really that's a higher calling. And that brings us to the conclusion for this video on the financial planning area of tax planning. We've been looking at the financial planning frameworks and processes, part of this series of integrated financial planning, looking at the financial planning areas that go into developing effective financial plans. Thank you. Thank you very much.